My name is Derek Mosser. I am the Director of Business Development for the Fluid Management Group within Repligen. I want to take a couple of minutes here to talk through a rather serious and technical subject that I think affects all of us. Kitchens. So we've all shopped for an apartment, or I'm sure we've all shopped for a house, right? And the first thing we look for usually is the kitchen, right? What does it look like? What do the appliances look like? Because we spend a disproportionate amount of time of our lives in our house, in our kitchens. So we want to look to see they have the great appliances, right? And I recently found out they make these refrigerators that have ice makers, and they make those clear, the crystal clear ice cubes for cocktails, which I think is very, very cool. To me, that's representative of these chromatography systems, right? Repligen has been bringing to bear for years now disruptive, innovative, technological advancements in all these individual unit operations, right? So all of this equipment that makes our lives easier. But if you're shopping for that house, you don't stop there, right? Either you yourself or you're gonna have a contractor take a look at the foundation, right? Does the plumbing work? Is it leaking? Is there enough electricity everywhere, right? That, folks, is fluid management within Repligen, right? We are working to optimize fluid mobility between all of those unit operations. So whether you're sterile filtering, maybe you're aliquoting into a bottle or a bag system for distribution around the facility, might be, a sampling, right? Sterile sampling from a vessel. This is what we're here to help with. Now, you probably are asking yourself, big deal, right? Aren't there 1,000 people out there putting single-use systems together, right? Why Repligen as well? Well, I think it starts with our problem statement here, right? So people have tried to address single use in the market historically. There are folks that have tried that standardized system, right? Here's your box of Legos. This is all you can buy, red blocks, blue blocks, and brown blocks. And you put them together and configure it on your own and figure yourself out, and hopefully your process works really well. Through that process, some other folks have tried to go, that fully customized process, right? We make it the way you want it. There are thousands of options, right? So now you've got a flow path with several sources that you have to contend with, and that presents, desperate risks, right? In security of supply. So to me and to Repligen, we're looking at ways that we're able to bring a greater value to our customers, not only in the design and the figuring out of how we're going to do the single use, but then also working through vertical integration and making sure that we lock down and secure that supply chain. So that consultation-based mass customization, right? So at the risk of making it sound like our team is ancient and old, the fluid management team is comprised of several individuals that pretty much their entire career has been plastics in bioprocess, right? So we've got many, many, many years of experience working with folks across the globe, optimize their process, and figure out of the tens of thousands of options of connectors and tubing and everything else, what's the best path that makes your process the most ergonomic, most economical, right, and the safest. And now we're coupling that with the vertical integration strategy, right? So we are bringing within our own control and supply chain some of those items that have historically been problem children, right, for all of us that have ever bought a single-use system. So I kind of broke it down into 3 buckets. So the first bucket of the fluid management group are the fluid paths themselves, right? So you got things like the bottles, hollow fiber, the filters, molded and over-molded assemblies, right? So for farther upstream processes, we're really, really good at putting barb and zip ties together, right? Odor clamps, making secure connections. We're also really, really good at over-molding silicone. So we have an operation in Albany, New York. That's all they do. So we control that supply chain, and now we can go and work with you and say, you need an 8-bottle manifold that has aseptic connections, and this is the best way to accomplish your process. if you have any experience, and maybe I'll get a quick show of hands here, has anybody gotten that dreaded phone call or email from your supplier saying, your process is going to be delayed because I can't ship you your single-use system because a sanitary clamp is on back order? I mean, right? Thank you. It has happened. It happens, right? And especially over the last 2 years with supply chains being what they are, right? And the added complexity of that. That's one more example of something that Repligen has vertically integrated into our supply chain to make sure that that's not a problem for us. So things down to sanitary to barb connections. We're not going overseas. We're not relying on someone else. We send the Repligen truck down to New Jersey, and we pick up more connectors, all right? So the end result, fully secured, single-use flow path that, short of a crazy aseptic connector or something like that, we have a ton of security built into that supply chain. As a side note, the aseptic connectors, no one yet has invented that universally mateable aseptic connector. So if anybody has a bright idea about that, please talk to me outside later on, away from the rest of the Repligen people. We're going to get rich together. So the next bucket, right? You got your flow path, you got your 8-bottle manifold. That's the way to go. How do you control the flow? So we're able to offer, again, through our vertically integrated supply chain, went too far. Everything from just a manual pinch clamp, right? Simple guillotine pinch clamp, on and off, control flow. If your process requires something with a bit more finesse, right? We have the manual and automatic actuated pinch valves, which have more of a gradient pinch. So you can fine-tune the flow through your process. If you're on the front side of a TFF cassette or something like that, you can really dial this in. I'm not going to belabor that point too much because you've all heard about it on the skid, and you can see them firsthand on the chrome skid. But I do want to point out that these very cool things down at the bottom. So Mr. Cates was integral in the development of these things. So we call them the exoskeletons. I'm sure marketing's going to come out with a clever name eventually, but we're sticking with exos for right now. So again, essentially they are scaffolds, right, that you clamp around your manifold and around the tubing. So they can serve two good purposes. One, they help you manage your tube set, right? So you can lock it in place. You don't have to worry about your operator tripping over things or kinking a line, right? You can lock it in place. And these can be mounted on pretty much anything. But another cool thing that we've done is that we've integrated these valves with these exos. And now you've got a block that you can mount or just have laying on your workbench, whatever you want. But now you have a block that now you can precisely control the flow through that manifold. So you got your 8-bottle manifold. It's wonderful. It's got the Repligen silicone. It's got everything. Now you can control the flow directly by pinching immediately on those junction points. So just like Steve and the team were talking about before, no dead legs. So if you're using a sterile sampling assembly, you know you're going to have a good representative pull off of your source. And at the risk of sounding like the Billy Mays of biotech, but wait, there's more. So you've got your manifold block, you've got your 8-bottle manifold, and it's beautiful. Now you got to sit it in your clean room. You got to work with it. You and your team have to sit there and deal with the kraken octopus that is this manifold, right? Where do you put it? What's the benchtop workspace look like? Where do we put the pump? I could go on forever. We have internalized into our supply chain fabrication services of equipment that directly and purposefully support the deployment of single use. So beyond that skid, right, moving that fluid in between those unit operations, we'll build everything from bag totes, bottle carts, filter racks, you name it, right? Our manufacturing format, everything can be customized. So if we can design it in SolidWorks, we can build it in real life. So the next thing that people usually say is, yeah, Derek, that's great, but why polypropylene? Well, it is wonderfully chemically inert. So you can hit it with SporaCleanse, Vespene. I've got customers that are heating bleach and spraying them down with bleach. Do your worst, right? These things look as good 3 years from the day you bought it as the day you bought it. You can color code it. The polypropylene gives us the ability to create geometries that stainless steel just simply doesn't afford. So the next concern is, yeah, Derek, but it's plastic, right? It's gonna crack. It's not as strong as stainless steel. But you would be wrong. So this is a 3,000 liter bag tote. Polypropylene, it's got all the strengths of steel, it's wonderful, and it's cleanable. You don't gotta worry about rouging, you don't gotta worry about rusting, and we can incorporate all kinds of fancy things like overhead radar for level sensing. If you wanna go this old school route of load cells, we can do that too. So how do we make it strong? So traditional plastic fabrication, you take two pieces of plastic, put them together, you run a piece of weld rod down the middle or down the seam. Make something that doesn't leak. It looks pretty. But the problem is you still have two separate pieces of plastic, and you've got a heck of a place for bacteria, or if you got a growth media leak or something, then it's tough to clean, right? So you really got to get in there. So what we've developed is a fusion technology for making the welds on these big pieces of equipment, where we essentially join those two pieces, so now they are one, right? But also, the weld rod that reinforces that also creates a baby's bottom smooth junction. So now, you want to wipe it down, you want to clean in between your unit or your batches, not a problem. It's very, very easy to do. So finally, a quick, small case study, right? So we had a customer come to us and said, we have a filtration process that we want to deploy. And essentially, we want to build a manifold of 12 filters. We want 12 pre-filters manifold in there. And we don't know how to handle it. So initially, we worked with them to build both the assembly of a flow path and couple that with a filter racking system that would help their operators manage a behemoth like a 24 filter manifold. And just to give you a sense of scale, those are 30 inches and those are 24 inches. So they're not small things, right? They're not small filters. So we designed the rack, everything's great, and they said, you know what, why don't we take it a step further and control that flow? So we integrated I almost made that mistake, almost did it, the Repligen pinch clamps, the pneumatic pinch clamps. Had all the air lines tied in to the main vessel, and it essentially has we call it a dummy skid, right? There's no controls, there's no logic on the skid, but it's essentially a connection point. The customer can route that in through their existing Delta V in their own process, or in their own facility, put together their recipe and their process, and now what was a menagerie of tubing and filters, and what was just a simple filter rack has turned into quite a clever piece of equipment that now they essentially hit the play button and run their filtration process. So, having said all of that, I very much thank you for your time. On to the snacks and cocktails. Thank you.